There is a destructive pattern I see in my practice every day. Exceptional women who become invisible to men precisely because they are too good. At the end of this video, I will reveal the clinical secret that will change the way you engage in relationships forever, based on over 30 years of experience studying human behavior. But before we continue, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel if you want to learn more about rational love, and write to me in the comments if you've ever felt that the more you give, the less you are appreciated. I want to hear your story. 3 weeks ago, a 52-year-old woman came into my practice, but let's call her Carmen, successful, intelligent, and with a heart as big as a cathedral. She said something that broke my heart. "Dr. Riso, I feel like a piece of furniture in my own relationship. He only seeks me out when he needs something. Otherwise, I don't exist to him." Do you know what I discovered? Carmen had confused love with submissiveness and had developed a pattern I call the compulsive Good Samaritan syndrome. And, my dear, it's much more common than you think. Let's start with the most painful part. Misunderstood kindness destroys you emotionally. If you always say yes, constantly prioritize his needs over your own, and act as his mother, secretary, and nurse at the same time, then you're not being loving, you're committing emotional suicide. The human brain follows a simple principle. We value what costs us effort. Neuroscience shows that dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, is released more intensely when something is uncertain or requires effort. If you're taken for granted, always available, and never say no, you remove any dopamine release from the equation. Remember when you were a teenager and the boy you liked ignored you? You probably thought about him all the time. And what about the one who wrote to you every day, telling you how wonderful you are? Exactly. He bored you. That's not cruelty, that's biology. And now comes something that might make you uncomfortable. You need to learn to be strategically bad. By that, I don't mean cruel or manipulative, but smartly selective, knowing your worth and treating your time and energy as precious resources. Let me tell you about another patient, Patricia, 48 years old. She had been in a relationship for 3 years, where she always called first, organized everything, and gave without expecting anything. One day I told her, "Patricia, we're going to do an experiment. For 2 weeks, you won't initiate a single conversation. You respond, but you don't reach out." What happened in the first week? He barely contacted her. Patricia panicked. "See? He doesn't care about me." I explained a bit. "Patricia, what you're seeing now is the truth. If a relationship only works because you're pushing it forward, then it's not a relationship. It's a monologue." In the second week, something changed. He started wondering where she was, actively looking for her. And for the first time in 3 years, Patricia felt that he truly wanted her and didn't just take her for granted. This brings me to a crucial point. Healthy love requires reciprocity. It's not love if only one person is rowing the boat. It's dependency disguised as generosity. And here comes a painful truth. Being too good is often a form of control. Yes, you heard that right. Unconsciously, you believe that if you just give enough and are perfect, he'll have no choice but to love you. But true love cannot be bought with kindness or the best intentions. In cognitive psychology, this is called an emotional confirmation bias. You deliberately look for evidence that your strategy is working and ignore all signs that it isn't. You cling to the one thank you he gave you for something and overlook 100 situations where he ignored you. And then there's something rarely talked about, the savior syndrome. Many women are drawn to men who need to be rescued or fixed. You make yourself their emotional rehabilitation project. But the problem is, if someone didn't ask to be rescued, your help quickly becomes interference. I remember a patient who told me, "Doctor, but he has so much potential." My answer, "Dear, potential is like energy. If it's not turned into action, it remains nothing." You're not a personal development company. The uncomfortable truth is, we often attract what we believe we deserve. If you don't value yourself, don't set clear boundaries, and your self-worth depends on how much you can give, you will attract men who exploit exactly that dynamic. But all is not lost. Now comes the revolutionary part. Being selectively bad doesn't mean being a bad person, but developing what I call intelligent selfishness. Prioritizing your own well-being without harming others. Let me give you concrete examples. If he texts you at 11 at night because he wants to talk but you're tired, you can simply reply, "We'll talk tomorrow. Sleep well." No explanations, no apologies, no justifications. Your time has value. If he cancels plans at the last minute, don't immediately reschedule. Let him feel the natural consequences of his decision. Don't punish him, but don't rescue him from the discomfort he created either. And here's something revolutionary. Stop being constantly available. Build a life so interesting that sometimes you genuinely don't have time for him. That's not manipulation, it's a fulfilling life. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is saying no without guilt. I can't. It doesn't work for me. I don't like that. These are complete sentences. You don't need a dissertation to justify your boundaries. Do you know what happens when you start valuing yourself? Something magical. You attract men who value you too, because people who are only looking for free service disappear when it's no longer free. People who are looking for a life partner stay. Now to the fear many feel. What if he leaves me? My answer is simple. If someone leaves you just because you stopped being their emotional maid, they never loved you. They needed you. And that's a big difference. True love is based on choice, not necessity. Someone who loves you chooses you every day, not because you're essential to their functioning, but because they genuinely enjoy your company. From decades of experience, I know. Women with clear boundaries and self-respect have more fulfilling relationships. That's no coincidence, it's cause and effect. Let me tell you about Maria, a 55-year-old patient who came to me after her divorce. For 20 years, she was the perfect wife, cooked, cleaned, organized her husband's social life, never complained. And he left her for a woman who, as he said, was more interesting. At first, Maria was devastated. "Doctor, how could he leave me after everything I did for him?" I explained, exactly because of that. She had lost her essence, her personality, her ability to surprise. She had become a function, not a person. 2 years later, Maria came back, transformed. She had learned to say no, had her own hobbies, clear boundaries, and said to me, "Doctor, I'm in a new relationship, and for the first time in my life, I feel loved for who I am, not for what I do." This transformation was no accident. Maria had developed what I call authentic magnetism. When you respect yourself, others respect you. When you value yourself, others value you. That's a psychological law. But beware of the pendulum. This isn't about swinging from the extreme of being too good to being completely selfish. It's about balance, between giving and taking, between generosity and wisdom. And here's an important point about neuroplasticity. Your brain is shaped by your thought and behavior patterns. If you've been programmed for years to prioritize others' needs over your own, it will take time and practice to reprogram. Start with small changes. Don't always call first. Let a week go by. Stop apologizing when you're not at fault. If you always give in during arguments, start asserting your point of view. Observe how he responds to these changes. A man who truly loves you will respect your boundaries, even if the change unsettles him at first. A man who only needs you for convenience will resist, manipulate, or eventually leave. And if he leaves, let him go. As I always say, if someone adds no value to your life, add them to the recycling. Life is too short to waste it on people who don't recognize what they have in you. Let's address something that's rarely discussed: the difference between love and emotional dependency. Many women confuse the intensity of their need with the depth of their love, but desperately needing someone is not love, it's dependency. Healthy love allows you to be yourself, to have your own opinions, to make separate plans, to take time for yourself. Emotional dependency makes you lose your identity for the sake of another person. I remember a patient who said to me, "Doctor, I can't live without him." And I answered, "My dear, if you can't live without him, then you're not living with him either. You're merely surviving." The truth is, you must learn to be happy with yourself before you can be happy with someone else. It's not about needing no one, but about not needing one specific person to feel complete. Here's an interesting aspect from evolutionary psychology. People are drawn to those who radiate independence and self-reliance. From a survival perspective, it makes sense. An independent partner is more valuable than a dependent one. That's exactly why you become more attractive when you stop chasing and start living your own life. This isn't manipulation, it's human nature. Let's now talk about time. Many women believe that always being available is proof of love. In truth, constant availability is not love, it's fear. Fear of needing to control the relationship through constant presence. A man who loves you will value your time and not take it for granted. He will make plans with you, include you in his life, not keep you in a separate compartment. And now something many don't want to hear. If he doesn't introduce you to his friends, doesn't include you in his social plans, keeps your relationship a secret, then you're not his partner, you're his option. I think of Lucia, 49 years old, who was in a relationship for 2 years where he never included her in anything. He always had excuses. My friends wouldn't understand. My family is complicated as some it's not the right time. One day, she asked me, "Doctor, when is the right time?" My answer, "My dear, if someone loves you, any time is the right time. If someone is proud of you, they don't need excuses to show you to the world." That conversation changed Lucia's life. She realized she was accepting emotional breadcrumbs and telling herself it was love, when in truth it was convenience. Here's an important point. You must distinguish between men who seek you because they need you and men who seek you because they desire you. Need is purpose-driven, desire is emotional. A man who needs you seeks you when he has problems, wants something, or is bored. A man who desires you seeks you because he truly enjoys your company, misses you, and wants to share moments with you. The distinction is simple. Observe when he seeks you. If he only contacts you in times of crisis, you're his plan B. If he reaches out when things are going well, when he's happy, when life is smooth, then you matter to him. And now to a misconception, the difference between being desirable and being indispensable. Many women believe that being indispensable secures a man's love. In reality, it's the opposite. Indispensability creates dependency, not love. Being desirable creates attraction and conscious choice. Dependency is fragile. It breaks when a better alternative appears. Desire is powerful. It renews itself day by day. How do you become desirable instead of indispensable? By developing your own life, your own interests, your own identity. By being a complete person who chooses to share their wholeness with someone. I remember a patient who told me, "Doctor, he needs me so much." My answer, "My dear, the fact that he needs you isn't proof that he loves you. Parasites need their hosts too." Harsh, but true. Many modern relationships are based on mutual dependency, not mutual love. Dependency creates resentment, not fulfillment. The most important point in this entire message is therefore, you must learn to love yourself before you can love someone else in a healthy way. This isn't narcissism, it's self-respect. When you love yourself, you automatically set boundaries. When you respect yourself, you demand respect. When you value yourself, you don't accept just anything to avoid being alone. And here lies the most beautiful paradox of love. When you stop desperately needing someone to be happy, you become far more attractive to those who are truly worth it. Let me give you a practical exercise for the next 7 days. Every time you feel the impulse to do something for him without being asked, ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly want to, or out of fear that he'll pull away if I don't? If the answer is the latter, don't do it. Learn to distinguish between genuine generosity and manipulation disguised as love. Another exercise, when he texts or calls you, don't respond immediately. Wait a bit, even if it's just half an hour, not as a game, but to show yourself that your time is valuable and you're not available 24/7. And now something that will change your perspective. Stop viewing conflict as something negative. Healthy relationships involve disagreements, discussions, differing views. If he's never upset with you, you never argue and you always agree. You don't have a relationship, you have a job. Arguments are opportunities to get to know each other better, to set boundaries and to show who you really are. If you always give in, he can never truly know you. I remember a patient who told me, "Doctor, I hate conflicts." My answer, "My dear, it's not conflicts you hate, it's the possibility that he'll leave you if you disagree. But if someone leaves you because of a different opinion, he never truly loved you." This realization changed her relationship dynamics forever. She began expressing her views, standing her ground, showing her true personality, and surprisingly, her relationship improved. Because when you show up as you really are, you give the other person the chance to love your true self, not the mask you wear. Let's move on to something many women unconsciously do: competing with other women for a man's attention. This is a psychological trap. When you compete for someone, you automatically place yourself in an inferior position. You signal, "I have to win his attention because I'm not valuable enough on my own." But the truth is, you shouldn't have to fight for anyone. If someone doesn't choose you voluntarily, if you have to convince him of your worth, he's not the right one for you. A man who loves you doesn't put you in competition with others. He chooses you clearly, prioritizes you consistently, and gives you security in the relationship. I think of Elena, 51 years old, who had become a private detective on her partner's social media. She checked who he followed, whose posts he liked, who he interacted with. She lived in constant fear and in competition mode. One day I said to her, "Elena, do you realize you're living as if you're a contestant on a reality show? You're fighting for someone who supposedly already chose you." I explained to her that healthy relationships don't require constant monitoring. If someone loves you, you don't have to spy on their activities to feel secure. This conversation was a turning point in Elena's life. She realized she was living in survival mode, not love mode. Here's a crucial point. You must learn to trust your intuition. Women have a remarkable ability to detect inconsistencies in men's behavior, but often ignore these signs because they don't want to face the truth. If your instinct tells you something's off, it probably is. If you feel like he's lying, he probably is. If you sense he's not prioritizing you, he probably isn't. You don't need forensic evidence to trust your intuition. Your brain processes millions of microsignals that your consciousness cannot analyze in detail. That feeling that something is off is your internal alarm system working. And now to a rarely discussed topic: the role of vulnerability in relationships. Many women believe that being vulnerable means being weak, but the opposite is true. Real vulnerability means showing who you truly are, with all your fears, insecurities, and imperfections, being real instead of perfect. But there's a difference between vulnerability and emotional dependence. Vulnerability says, "This is how I feel, this is what I need, this hurts me." Emotional dependence says, "If you don't give me what I need, I'll fall apart." Authentic vulnerability is attractive because it shows humanity. Emotional dependence is off-putting because it shows desperation. I remember a patient who said to me, "Doctor, I'm afraid to show vulnerability because he might exploit it." My response was, "My dear, if someone exploits your vulnerability, then he doesn't deserve access to your heart." Vulnerability is a natural filter. Men who are worthy will respect and appreciate your authenticity. Men who are not will try to exploit it. Now, something that will change your perspective. You have to stop seeing love as a sacrifice and start seeing it as a celebration. Love is not what you lose when you're with someone, it's what you gain. In a healthy relationship, you don't lose your identity, you expand it. You don't lose your freedom, you share it. You don't lose your time, you invest it. If a relationship feels like a constant sacrifice, it's not the right one for you. Real love feels like an enrichment of your life, not a deduction. Let's move to a point that often causes confusion: the difference between loving and saving. Many women confuse love with the savior syndrome. They see a man with problems and think, "I can help him, I can change him, I can save him." But here's the truth: you can't save anyone. Each person is responsible for their own life, their choices, and their growth. If you try to save someone, you're not loving, you're controlling. You take on a responsibility that's not yours and rob the other person of the right to be responsible for themselves. Let me tell you about Rosa, a 54-year-old woman who was in a relationship for 8 years with a man who had problems with alcohol. She made her life a rescue mission, took him to meetings, poured out his bottles, scheduled therapy sessions. One day, she said to me, "Doctor, I've spent 8 years trying to help him, and he doesn't change." My answer: "Rosa, maybe he doesn't change precisely because you're saving him. If someone doesn't feel the consequences of their choices, they have no reason to change." That conversation opened Rosa's eyes. She realized that her help was actually an obstacle to his growth and to her own happiness. Here's a fundamental difference: support or rescue. Support means being there when someone is actively working to change. Rescue means doing the work for them. Support says, "I believe in you, I know you can do this." Rescue says, "Let me do this for you because you can't." Support empowers, rescue weakens. Support builds the relationship, rescue creates dependence. Now, to a truth many women don't want to hear. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes the most loving act is to let someone feel the consequences of their choices. That's not cruelty, it's respect. Respect for their ability to take responsibility for their life, even if that means experiencing pain through their own mistakes. I remember a patient who asked me, "Doctor, how can I let him suffer if I love him?" My response: precisely because you love him, you must let him grow, and growth sometimes requires pain. That's one of the hardest lessons of mature love. Sometimes loving means not interfering. Now comes something uncomfortable, but you need to hear it. Often women who are too good are actually unconsciously manipulative. Yes, exactly. If you compulsively give, do everything for someone without them asking, constantly sacrifice yourself, then you're often doing it to create guilt and obligation in them. Unconsciously, you think, If I do all this for him, he'll feel obligated to love me. But obligation isn't love, it's emotional debt. True love is not based on guilt, but on free and spontaneous choice. If someone loves you, it's not because they owe you, it's because they genuinely want to be with you. Here's something I've observed over decades of work. Women who have the most fulfilling relationships have learned to be selective with their generosity. They don't give everything to everyone. They're not available to everyone at all times. They've learned to treat their time, energy, and love as the valuable resources they are. This selectiveness isn't selfishness, it's self-respect, and self-respect is incredibly attractive. A concrete example, imagine you have a friend who constantly borrows money and never pays it back. If you keep giving them money, you're not generous, you're naive, and they won't respect you more, but less. The same applies in romantic relationships. If you always give without getting anything in return, always give in without him doing the same, constantly sacrifice without him sacrificing, you're not building love, you're building resentment. Let's come to a point that scares many women, the fear of loneliness. And many accept mediocre relationships because they're terrified of being alone. But here's the truth. Being alone isn't the worst thing that can happen. The worst is losing your essence just to keep someone who doesn't value you. Loneliness is temporary, but losing your identity can be permanent. Loneliness gives you space to grow, reflect, and get to know yourself better. A bad relationship takes all that away from you. I remember a patient who said to me, "Doctor, I'd rather be badly accompanied than well alone." My answer, "My dear, if you're badly accompanied, you're actually alone, just with noise." That thought changed her perspective. She realized she had confused physical presence with emotional closeness. And here comes something revolutionary. Learn to enjoy your own company. If you don't enjoy being with yourself, how should others? Build a loving relationship with yourself. Plan dates with yourself. Buy yourself flowers. Celebrate your successes. Become the person you most enjoy spending time with. When you do that, you'll automatically attract people who also love being around you, and repel those who are only with you because they can't be alone. Another important difference that many don't understand, that between love and obsession. Many women confuse the intensity of their fixation with the depth of their love. But true love liberates. It is not possessive. It allows you to be yourself, to have your own life, to grow and change. Obsession, on the other hand, restricts. It forces you to revolve your life around a single person, robs you of perspective, and distorts your perception. And if you spend most of your time thinking about him, analyzing his behavior, or guessing his intentions, then it's not love. It's obsession. Healthy love allows you to lead a fulfilling life, even when you're not with him. Obsession reduces your life to him. I think of Marta, 47 years old, who developed an obsessive fixation on a man who barely paid her any attention. She spent hours analyzing his messages, interpreting his silences, looking for signs of interest. One day I asked her, "Marta, when was the last time you thought about something other than him?" She couldn't answer. She had become a prisoner of her own obsession. I explained to her, "True love doesn't consume your life. It enriches it. It doesn't drain your energy. It gives it to you. It doesn't limit you. It expands you." That conversation marked the beginning of Marta's healing. She began to invest time in herself, develop her own interests, go out with girlfriends. And something amazing happened when she stopped chasing him. He began to show more interest. But by then, she no longer needed him in the same way. She had rediscovered her own life, her own worth, and her own ability to be happy independently. Here comes something that may sound contradictory, but is deeply true. In order to love someone in a healthy way, you must be willing to lose them. If your happiness completely depends on another person, you cannot love them freely because the fear of loss paralyzes you. True love requires courage, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to show who you really are, the courage to set boundaries, and above all, the courage to walk away if the relationship is not healthy. Another common mistake: interpreting a man's actions instead of taking them at face value, or worse, inventing meanings that aren't there. He writes you, "Hi," and you interpret, "He misses me." He doesn't invite you over the weekend and you think, "He must have a lot of work." He cancels a meeting and you justify it with, "It must have been something important." The truth is, a person's actions show their priorities. If you are important to him, his actions will show it consistently. If you are not important to him, his actions will also show it, no matter what excuses you find. A simple but powerful rule: judge a man's actions by their actual value, not by what you wish they meant. If he behaves as if you're not important, then you probably aren't to him. If he treats you like an option, you're probably just an option. I remember a patient whose boyfriend never invited her to important social events. She said to me, "Doctor, he's just a very private person." My answer: my dear, when someone loves you, they want to show you, not hide you. The difference between privacy and secrecy is crucial. Privacy means you don't share every detail of your relationship with the world. Secrecy means he acts as if you don't exist when he's with others. So, my dear, remember, your worth doesn't depend on how much you can do for someone, but on who you are and how you treat yourself. Love that's worth it doesn't ask you to shrink yourself, lose yourself, or stop being who you are. It gives you room to grow, to evolve, and to be loved unconditionally. When you set clear boundaries, recognize your own worth, and stop settling for emotional crumbs, you open the door to relationships that truly nourish and enrich you. That's not just a shift in how others see you. It's a profound shift in how you see yourself. And in the end, the most important lesson from all of this: love begins with yourself. When you build a strong foundation of self-respect, self-confidence, and emotional independence, you will attract people who recognize and appreciate that. You will stop chasing those who don't know your worth and stop competing for the attention of those who should never be a priority for you. Your happiness, your peace, and your fulfillment should always come first, because only when you are whole within yourself can you love freely, without fear and without conditions. That is true strength, and that is love that lasts.